The kind of things we hear and see in this day and age is beyond baffling. Watch this story to the end. Once upon a time, there lived a young, beautiful Igbo girl named Adaku. Adaku was an epitome of beauty and character, the love of many, and the apple of Tobenna's eyes. Who is Tobenna? You will find out soon. When Adaku first married into the prestigious Okeke family, she had dreams of peaceful and loving union with her husband, Tobenna. She imagined family gatherings filled with laughter, a supportive mother-in-law and siblings who would treat her like their own. But her reality was starkly different. From the moment she entered the Okeke household, she felt like an outsider rather than a beloved daughter-in-law. Her mother-in-law, Madam Gold, was a formidable woman, a serial entrepreneur, one of the top jewelers in Nigeria. She has very sharp eyes that missed nothing and a mind set on preserving the family's legacy. She had hoped Tobenna, her eldest and only son, would marry the daughter of a business associate, a match that would have elevated the Okeke family standing even further. But Tobenna had followed his heart and chosen Adaku, a woman of simple background from a modest village in Anambra State. What exactly was Adaku expecting from Madam Gold and her family, when from the very beginning she made it clear that she disapproved of her being her daughter-in-law? As they went ahead with the marriage and bore no children in the first 3 years, Madam Gold began seeing her barren womb as a flaw, and in her eyes, the Okeke family needs heirs. The fact that Adaku had been married to her son for 3 years without a child only fueled her resentment. Every day, Madam Gold found new ways to undermine Adaku, constantly making snide remarks about her worth and casting scornful glances in her direction. Even Tobenna's sisters, Adaku and Chinwe, followed their mother's lead, taunting Adaku whenever Tobenna wasn't around. Now you might be wondering if they were living together. Well, yes, they were, but not with Adaku's consent. Madam Gold had managed to convince Tobenna to bring Adaku to her house, that the sound of children from his sisters will quicken the babies in Adaku's womb. Tobenna innocently agreed because he loved his wife and wanted children. He spent 3 days out of 7 in his mother's house as a way of keeping Adaku company. Every day in the Okeke household was a new trial. Madam Gold scrutinized everything Adaku did, from the way she cooked to how she kept her room. Her sister-in-laws were equally dismissive, often gossiping loudly about her, hoping she would overhear. Look at her, Tobenna's Mbweke wife, Chinwe said one evening while Adaku was cooking dinner. The way she chews food like a goat is most annoying to me, Adobe added with a loud laugh. Adaku kept her head down and continued preparing dinner. She was determined to win them over through her actions and her cooking, something she had always been praised for back in the village. Adaku tried to ignore the jabs, tried to be the dutiful wife and daughter-in-law, hoping that patience would win a place in their hearts. But as months went by and pregnancy wasn't coming forth, the hostility grew. Even Tobenna began to pull away from her, his once loving demeanor replaced by cold indifference, influenced by his family's whisper that Adaku was not fit for their family, most especially not for him. They called her Barren. One evening, while cleaning up after dinner, Adaku overheard Ijeoma and Chinyere talking in the living room. "It's time we do something," Adobe whispered, her tone sharp. "This girl thinks she's here to stay, but we will see about that. Tobenna deserves better, come on. Someone who will bring honor and wealth and children into our family. I know just the right girl for this." Adaku's heart pounded as the truth hit her. They were planning to replace her, to drive her out and bring in someone they deemed worthy of Tobenna. Anger surged within her, mixing with a deep sense of betrayal. She had sacrificed everything for this family, and they treated her like dirt under their feet. That night, Adaku lay awake, thinking about everything she had endured. She remembered the humiliation, the cruel words, the laughter behind her back. She thought about how hard she tried to win them over, how much she had given up, just being part of this family. She thought of what to do that would make them remember her forever. One evening, Adaku was scrolling through social media when she bumped into a spiritualist talking about cooking with vaginal fluid as a means of activating talk and do charm, that is, a subduing charm. She followed the instructions carefully and decided to implement it. The next day, as she thought of what to cook to mark the beginning of peace in her home and life, she thought to make Tobenna's favorite. She would prepare a rich pot of egusi soup, but this time she would add her secret ingredients, her vaginal fluid. That evening, just before adding the final ingredient, Adaku slipped away to the bathroom, her heart pounding. She washed herself, collected the water, and returned to the kitchen. But something within her urged her to proceed. This was her last act of desperation, and she was determined to do this. Her hands shook as she stirred the pot, feeling both terrified and resolute. She had crossed a line, but if this was what it took to secure a place in this family, she was willing to take the risk. Just as she stood there debating with herself, she received a message from Tobenna's sister Adobe. The message read, "We are leaving for Spain in an hour. Mother says we'll be gone for 2 weeks. Tobenna is with us." There was no mention of her in that text message, no question about whether she wanted to come along. It hurt her. Despite being married into this family for 3 years, Adaku still felt like an outsider. Tobenna had told her to keep trying and give it time, but time had only made things worse. Now, without a word, they were taking a family trip and leaving her behind. Even her own husband did not deem it fit to mention it to her. It was as if the universe itself was giving her a sign. Slowly, Adaku placed the ingredient, that is, her vaginal water, that she had put into the soup. She placed the remaining one back on the counter. She thought back to her mother's advice before she got married. Her mother said to her, "My daughter, always walk the path of truth and honor, no matter how hard it gets. If you lose yourself for others, what will you have left? In whatever you do, make sure that your actions are pleasing to God and man." Those words resonated now more than ever. She looked at the steaming pot of egusi soup and decided that she was more than this. She poured it down the sink. Looking at it go down, she resolved within herself that she cannot lose herself for anybody in this family. Determined, Adaku packed all her belongings and left that house that evening. She moved to her friend's house where she spent 2 weeks while Tobenna and his family were away. During that time, she ignored Tobenna's calls, giving herself space to reflect on what truly mattered to her. When Tobenna's family returned, he tried calling her repeatedly. When she finally picked up, she spoke with a calmness that even surprised her. "Tobenna," she began, "I've decided to let you go." There was silence on the line, and she could almost feel his confusion and frustration. "Adaku, what are you talking about?" Tobenna asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Tobenna, I am tired," she replied. "I've endured disrespect, humiliation and scorn from people who should have been family to me. I won't lose my sanity trying to prove myself in a marriage where I am neither appreciated nor included. I cannot go mad for you and your mother. So I'm letting you go. Go and marry that person they said is perfect for you. I am an Mbweke, I accept, but I will not be an Mbweke and be disrespected. I refuse that." At first, Tobenna tried to argue, but she was resolute. For the first time, she saw that she had the power to step away from a situation that no longer served her, to reclaim her life. She felt lighter with every word she spoke, as if a great weight was lifted from her shoulders. Back at his family home, Tobenna was in turmoil. He thought back to all that Adaku had endured for him, the way she had tried to fit in, her kindness, her patience. He began to see just how much she had given of herself, how much she had compromised and endured, and he realized to his shame that he had taken her for granted, letting his family's bias cloud his love for her and allowing his family speak to his wife and treat her with such humiliation. When he told his mother and siblings about Adaku's decision, they seemed almost relieved. Maybe it's for the best, Tobenna. There are other women who will be better suited to our family. But Tobenna couldn't shake his guilt or the sense of loss. 2 months passed, during which he tried to move on, to accept his mother's encouragement to find someone new. But no one could replace Adaku. He missed her laugh, her warmth, and her resilience. Finally, he realized that he had to do something. This time, he was ready to put his relationship with Adaku first, above his family expectation and opinion. He reached out to her again, apologized sincerely, and asked for one more chance. Adaku was hesitant at first. She had tested freedom, found strength in herself, and wasn't sure she wanted to risk her peace again. But Tobenna was different now. He was humbled, sincere, and genuinely willing to make amends. After many conversations and soul-searching, Adaku decided to give him one last chance, with the understanding that things would have to change, otherwise she's out. Tobenna decided to make a fresh start with her, away from the influence of his family. He moved them to the United States, where they spent 6 months rebuilding their marriage. In the quiet of a new place, far from the pressures of family and tradition, they found each other again. They laughed, they shared dreams, and they mended the wound that once threatened to break them. As they rekindled their love, Adaku felt herself healing from the years of hurt, and then, in a beautiful twist of fate, she discovered she was pregnant. For the first time in years, she felt true happiness, not because she was finally fulfilling an expectation, but because she was doing it on her own terms, with a man who had learned to respect and value her. Oh. Months later, Tobenna and Adaku held their newborn daughter in their arms, tears streaming down their eyes. Adaku looked on, feeling a sense of fulfillment she had never known before. Together, they had become an unbreakable bond and overcome the trials that had once threatened to tear them apart. They came back to Nigeria after their childbirth. Back in Nigeria, Tobenna's mother and sister eventually softened, realizing that Adaku wasn't the outsider they once painted her to be. With time, they began to reach out, hoping to make amends. And while Adaku was open to forgiveness, she knew that her happiness no longer depended on anyone's approval. She had learned the importance of self-respect, honesty, and courage, the very value her mother had taught her, and she was glad she did not carry on with that act of putting her vagina fluid in their soup. In the end, Adaku's journey taught her that true love does not require sacrifices of integrity or self-worth. It took distance, time, and courage, but she and Tobenna finally built the family they had once dreamed of. A family founded not on obligation, but on genuine love and mutual respect. Did you enjoy this story? Tell me what you think about Adaku's initial attempt to lace their food with her vagina fluid. Was she noble for not carrying on? Did she do right by leaving that marriage? What about Madame Gold, her mother-in-law, and her unmarried sister-in-law? Yes, one of those sisters weren't married, and they forgot that they do not hold destinies in their hands. Today's shout out goes to my amazing fan, Hasmera Manasere. Thank you for always engaging. Keep engaging. If you want us to give you a shout out, let me know in the comments section. I love you so much. Thank you for your support. Kindly click the subscription button, turn on your notification bell so you'll be the first to know when another amazing story is made available. Like and share so others will watch this story and learn this lesson. Till the next story lovers, enjoy your day. Bye.